Welcome, true believers. It is I, Shane, and I'm here to give you another episode review and recap of Loki, the MCU Disney Plus Disney series. Disney Plus Marvel series. And today's episode is episode 2, The Variant. As always, I'd like to please ask you to give me a like, a comment, and a subscribe. It really helps out the channel. We are so close to hitting 100 subscribers. Pardon my voices. I've been doing a lot of talking today, but yeah, this is a very interesting one. So, allow me to regale you in what has happened. Of course, we know the recap. The recap is Loki's at the TVA. It's either be disintegrated or help them out to find a renegade variant. And that renegade variant is, of course, a version of himself. And I just so happen to be wearing some green glasses. You probably can't see it, but yeah, these bad boys are Loki green, which is a thing I actually meant to say before. I like how the Marvel logo for the shows and things have reflected the colors of the characters, especially this one. I love that shade of green, and gold. So anyway, we begin in 1985, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's a Renaissance fair going on. Several people are dressed up, and of course, through the time gates are the TVA. They're trying to find the variants that they've located there, and they're even chastised by one of the workers. They're saying, you guys aren't dressed up, and I'm guessing that Ren Fair people work really hard to make the money they do, because that young lady seemed very upset at them. So they go through a tent, and in the tent, the loudspeaker goes off, and it's telling of like a princess and looking for a prince and looking for a hero. And the officer, I believe it's C20, um, young black lady. She looks too young. I don't know how old these people are in TVA, but this one she looks super young. And the actress is 25, so I guess that's kind of a curse for young actors and actresses, which is to look extremely young. I mean, look at Tom Holland, but I digress. So she's touched on the side of the head by the hooded figure from the end of the last episode. Green shade comes over her. She's smirking, taking off her helmet, says she wants to have a little bit of fun, and she openly kills one of her teammates, and she's going at another one with a lance. And the wooden lance is breaking against their armor, and of course the variant is able to come behind and kill this person too. And as she's attacking another one, before she can even kill this guy, she's knocked out, and he is quickly stabbed and dispatched by the Variant Loki. Not only does Loki take the charge, Loki also drags the TVA agent along into another time portal. So we are then going over to the TVA's headquarters, and Loki's talking to Miss Minutes, played by the wonderful Tara Strong. You guys know Tara Strong, right? Played Timmy Turner. Timmy Turner's actually the first thing I think of her, but Tara Strong's been in the industry for a long time. I don't know if you're a My Little Pony fan or if your kids are My Little Pony fans. She plays one of the ponies. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but it's Tara Strong. Very easy to recognize her, and apparently she's quizzing Loki on several of the what's the word I'm looking for, how things are done. Testing him over what do the agents do and things like that. And Loki asks if Miss Miz, are you a recording or are you alive? And apparently she is sort of both. He even takes a chance to, try to smack her with the Jet Ski magazine. And she retreats back into the very 1960, 1970 style computer, calling him a jerk. Which is so weird that the time the TVA has a very old style office. But I digress. Um, Apparently, there's another meeting and they have to go. Mobius comes to grab him, tells him to put that magazine back on his desk because the Loki variant has attacked again. Because Loki's making a point of saying it is a lesser variant. He's given a jacket. He wears the jacket. Looks nice on him while they're having a meeting. Of course, I always forget what is. I think there's Hunter B-15, and she is being a bee. She's giving them a rundown of what's going on, saying if you see a Loki variant, kill it. And Loki's like, of course not this one. I'm the good one. and she makes him turn around because he has a variant on the back of his jacket and wants to remind everybody what he is, an abomination that shouldn't exist. Which I know Loki's a bad guy. TVA are seeming very much like cops, the kind of cops that you hate, which makes it very easy for me not really to care if these characters die. I think the only person I actually like is Mobius outside of Loki. So, let's just keep that in mind. I don't know which way they're trying to get you to go. I feel like they want you to feel sympathy for Loki because he's showing a lot of emotion and growth, but that's regardless. Mobius shows that Loki variants come in different sizes. They can look very different, and they have different powers. We're shown a Loki that looks like OG Loki from the Thor movies and Avengers. We're shown a soccer player Loki. Then we're shown a demon man Loki with literal horns coming out of him. That is where we got the demon Loki and that weird chapel. Maybe Loki is the inspiration for Mephisto. Maybe there's a Loki that actually is Mephisto. Then it shows that the last two, one just straight up doesn't look like him. Looks like the 1970s version of the Master from Doctor Who. Another one looks like a straight up Viking Raider. And when listing Loki's normal powers, he's talking about look out for um, illusions and things of that nature. And Loki says, "Oh, duplication casting," and Mobius says, "Well, he's going to say illusion projecting," and Loki says, "Well, it's different." And the difference, I believe, this is probably they usually don't. When you watch a show, pay attention to what is and isn't said. And Loki explaining the difference between duplication casting and illusionary magic, which you definitely need to watch the show to see how great this moment is not only to make us the viewers go wow, it's also supposed to impress those around him so he can show why he's useful. And of course everybody's worried about Loki betraying him, and Mobius says he's not worried because even Loki says, "Aren't you worried I'm going to betray you if you take me with you?" Loki wouldn't get a moment. He wouldn't be able to meet the timekeepers, and Loki now knows that that's on the table. So Loki also asked a question I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers ask: how come they just don't go back in time to before the branch splits off? And since the branch is steadily destabilizing, they need to go while time is steadily moving forward. Of course, they give a quiz on what happens when that red line hits the top, the very top. You can't reverse the time stream once you do that. So Loki gets chide about watching the videos, which he actually does watch the videos. He knows what the reset charges do, which one of the TVA's hunters asked him about. And Judge B, being a B-15, doesn't think that the captain would get caught. And Loki is very astutely saying, if you guys step outside there, you're going to be like everybody else that's in here that's dead. I'm pretty sure if it were me, I would take the person hostage and try to kill everybody else. And Loki's kind of giving them he's not really giving Mobius the runaround, but he's explaining things. He's being very long-winded like Loki does. They're saying that there's a saying in Asgard where there are wolf's ears, wolf teeth, and ear. Which is just, it's a saying to show how gullible people in Asgard is. And he's literally talking, I won't say he's talking down to, but he's talking at Judge B-15, telling her, you guys underestimate me, you underestimate this other Loki. You're gonna, something's gonna end up happening to you by keep underestimating us. All the while, the branch is steadily going towards the red, and when it's at, they count them by units. So when it's at close to 1 unit, Mobius says he's been distracting us. Just go ahead and just reset everything. Which Loki, he astutely said earlier, it's a fancy way of saying disintegrate everything, which it literally does. The charges, we finally get to see this. It's not that it just resets everything. Anything that's in that timeline is gone, which means they technically erase people. Not a lot of moral gray area. At least in my mind, there's not a lot of moral gray area. And Loki is so funny. Loki says he needs to speak to the timekeepers. They're in grave danger, and that's when, they decide to set everything. Which it's always apparent in a lot of these shows when a character that they adamantly don't want to trust because obviously he's not been trustworthy before. This probably the person you should listen to. Kind of sucks. Mobius is on the cusp of being smart enough to know that, but it appears that his patience is running thin because he goes on to meet his old judge friend, which it seems to be a lot more than just being a friend. But she acknowledges that they are friends. Apparently, she has other um, agents that bring her things back because he brought her back a roller skate from one era. Apparently, she has a snow globe now, which is a little bit of banter there about are they, will they, won't they, or it's a lot of assumptions and illusions that it's a dating kind of thing. They talk about the botch case, talking about Loki. He believes that understanding one Loki will help find the other one. And she basically says, he's lying and evil. He's playing that part. And Moby says, well, what if he wants to mix it up? And she goes on to say, well, now let the timekeepers decree it, which is a thing I greatly hate because my religious belief, not to bring religion into it, even though we're talking about a Norse god and a show, it's about free will, which is probably Loki's main issue with the timekeepers. Everything is written for you. There's no fun. Chaos doesn't necessarily mean bad things. It means unexpected. And for things to be written for you, it's kind of I just these time creepers, timekeeper beings. They're being them making a guy say, "Yeah, you're going to be evil forever." Even though I don't even though I think most of us would agree that towards the end of Dark World and into some of Ragnarok, Loki has kind of turned a corner. But I digress. Mobius asks how the Timekeepers are doing. He's never met them ever, which is again another interesting thing that the beings that they made, only a select few are allowed to meet and talk with them, which it seems to be either the judges and it seems like some of the hunter executioners. And she says they're all, they're in the tizzy. They're paying close attention to what's going on with this, with not just our Loki variant, but with the bad Loki variant. And she's saying Mobius gets one more chance with this guy. He's saying if he goes out the rails, he'll delete him himself. And now he doesn't want Loki to talk. He goes outside, and Loki's waiting for him. They're having a back and forth, and Loki's trying to explain himself to him, and you know, before he even got out there, he was calling Loki arrogant, which he's saying, you're being arrogant because you have the superior you out there. I don't care about what makes you tick. I want you to help me find this Loki. And he was saying he would hope that knowing that this person's a step ahead of you would make you want to move forward and say, hey, I want to catch them just so I can be better. And we get that line and that scene from the trailers where saying it's cute that you think you can manipulate me. Um, Loki saying he's been playing it all along, and Mobius even says, "Well, yeah, you plan on double crossing us and killing the timekeepers and ruling over the TVA." Which Loki has that look where he looks down and kind of like he's been had. Which I feel like that thought probably crossed Loki's mind, but I get a strong feeling that that's not the type of character he is currently. And Loki says, "Well, why do you keep sticking your neck out for me?" Moby says, "Because A, he feels sorry for an ice runt that's all alone, and B, he just wants a variant called." He calls him a scared little boy or a scared child. I forget which one. Doesn't really matter. And Loki says, "Well, I don't want your sympathy." And he says, "Well, he's running out of it." And the combination of these two, really, really good character combination. I sincerely hope that when this show is over, because they're already prepping for season 2, which is very interesting. They must really like this show, and it's a good show. I really hope that this dynamic does not get ripped apart. But I'm going to continue. He informs Loki this is his last chance, and he tells him, go with files about the variant and pretend that your life depends on it, because it technically does. One of the things is Loki actually said back in the 1985 he needs a couple assurances. Like he doesn't want to be instantly disintegrated when the job is done. So Loki's definitely thinking about self preservation here, but there's a little bit more going on behind that old mischievous mind of his. We had a nice little interaction between Loki and what I would call the librarian. He wants to know, he wants information on formulation of the TVA and the timekeepers, the beginning of time, the end of time. He can't get anything. And when he says, what isn't classified, he's given a file on himself, the variant that they're looking for. And he's looking through the file and he sees the apocalyptic event, the level 7 event of Asgard, the planet being destroyed. No survivors. There was a time variant uh, detected there. And, we see the look of sadness on Loki's face, but then when he looks and sees the type of event and sees that there was something there, he runs out. Mobius had gone to get lunch, which he's eating a salad, which, okay, seems to be a health nut, but regardless. Um, when he shows on the paper, and Mobius even says sorry about Asgard being destroyed, which Loki he's in front of Mobius. He shows that he kind of brushes off, say yeah, but he's going through. He's already had his time to grieve, but his mind is turning through an elaborate example that's kind of funny. He shows that if it were him, he would hide in an apocalyptic event because no matter what's going to happen, nothing there is going to variate. Everyone's going to die regardless, right? So he's saying, he can push the Hulk, he can get, set the palace on fire. Nothing will matter because everything's going to go anyway. And so they need to test this theory out. And of course, Mobius, there's again some back and forth about whether they should trust him. Eventually, they go to 79 AD. They're in Pompeii, Italy. That's right, with Mount Vesuvius going to erupt. And Mobius is so, I want to say, on edge. He's saying, just make bird sounds or something that doesn't mess it up too much. And he's Loki he goes on, frees some goats, and says in Greek, they're from the future. He's Loki, that's Mobius. They're from the TVA. All of you need to run because everyone's going to die and the volcano's going to erupt. No one believes him, but then the volcano does erupt. And we have this volcanic ash coming their way as everyone is scattering. And Mobius is checking the timeline and nothing is splintered off. So Loki is correct. You can technically find refuge in apocalyptic events and just sit around until you're ready to move along. Now, here's the crazy part. Their definition of apocalyptic events is pretty interesting. So we have hurricanes and natural disasters that are apocalyptic. Then you have things that are man-made that are apocalyptic. So I'm guessing things like Hurricane Katrina was probably counts as an apocalyptic event, especially if they're counting Mount Vesuvius. So, well, now that they've kind of tested this theory, Mobius again goes to his judge friend, just saying, "Hey, we got to go on the hunch here. I know you're trying to look out for me, but I'm excited about this. Let's go and do this." But before they do that, they need to find where the variant will be. And Loki's like, well, how many apocalyptic events could there be? There's tons, especially when they're looking for natural disasters. There are so many. So many. And they take a walk because Loki's falling asleep on these files. And Loki, asks, why do you have a magazine of jet skis? And he's saying, a lot of things get ruined over time, but in the early 90s, jet skis were awesome. He's never been on one. Loki says, okay, why not? Because, well, I guess the TVA agent riding one would cause a splinter or some BS. And Loki starts mocking him for believing 3 lizards that create all the time and keep it together. And he throws it back on him saying, so who was your dad? A frost giant. And you were raised by who? Odin, the god of everything? That sounds ridiculous to me. He's saying it really doesn't. Their backstories are all different. But where they all come from is going to sound ridiculous if you talk about it, which is kind of a meta, in universe meta joke. Thinking about where all these people come from. I mean, Captain America was a guy that got injected with some juice, came swole, then end up punching Hitler and Super Hitler in the face, falling in ice, and then awaken 90 years later. The backstories are funny, but like Moby says, you don't think too hard about it and you just go forward. He believes the TVA is real, and that was keep it real. Loki says, That's fine, but what about free will? No such thing as free will. And Mobius is kind of, he tries to, he doesn't like oversimplification of things like free will. Early when Loki was using the salad example, when he's talking about Nexus events, he's like, it's not just something that's not supposed to happen, but sure, let's go with that. And Loki's saying, okay, well, how does it all end? What are you guys waiting on then? And he's saying, we're keeping it preserved because the timekeepers are unwinding the epilogue, and then everybody will be at peace fully. And Loki's saying, so no chaos. He's like, only order is kind of boring. And he said, earlier you called me a child. And he's like, amongst other things. And you can tell Mobius feels better about calling him a child. And he says, I'm not a child because children don't know that nothing bad is ever truly bad, and nothing, and no, and things that are good are never ever truly good. Um, and it gets Mobius thinking about scared little boy, and he's thinking earlier, episode one, about the God, what was the kablooey gum that they end up finding. They weren't able to trace it back anywhere, but when they grabbed out of evidence and they were looking, it was created between 2047 and 2051. So in the future, we're gonna get some future stuff here. The future stuff here looks pretty interesting. Loki, so they're looking through natural disaster events, apocalyptic events between that, and there are a ton, especially dealing with destroying of the ecosystem. Please be good to animals. Please recycle. Please be good to animals. Anyway, apparently they find that there's a giant hurricane in Alabama 2050. Apparently it's called Rock's Cart. Roxxon Corporation rears its ugly head again. I'm really. When are we going to finally get the Roxxon Corporation, evil corporation? I'm going to assume they're going to show up in Armor Wars because we've seen them a bunch of times. Anyway, um, the judge again is concerned. She's Mobius' friend, which I find interesting that they have a notion of friendship where everybody acting like assholes to one another, especially Judge B15. What a jackass. Anyway, um, he just, he gets the approval. They're all going to suit up and go. Mobius even tries to give Loki a pair of his knives. And of course, B15 says no. And they're getting ready because the event they're going to is a Class 10 apocalypse. It's in Haven Hills. We forget, nice little 3D digital billboard, saying Haven Hills. That then gets crushed by a giant light fixture because it's a hurricane. They go into the rock cart. It even has there's even a hologram in the near the entrance of this Walmart esque place, which is just trying to show you, yeah, we're in the future. And Loki uses a spell to completely dry himself, which makes Hunter B15. She kind of taken back, like, what's going on? He's saying, I use a spell to dry myself. I'm not gonna make a lot of noise as I walk, unlike the rest of you. So Mobius was gonna take Loki with him because Loki's under his charge. B15 says no, you go with the others, while I go with him. And Loki's just like, look, I'm not gonna betray you. It's fine. But we get a funny moment of it's always the people that annoy you that are gonna say that they're not gonna betray you. Well, we are then with the cameras drawn back. We see that on the security cameras, our hooded Loki variant is watching them. Dummies. And as they're walking and kind of talking, our Loki is with B15, and they come across this guy looking at azaleas. And they're like, what are you doing? He's like, it's a hurricane, azaleas, everything's 50% off, which is 2050, so you don't know if he's serious or you don't know if this is just like some weird trick. Which, she asked, would you do something like that? He said, honestly, I probably would try to trick you. So she moves in. Guy touches her arm. Black guy touches her arm. She gets the green glow. And suddenly, as Loki's trying to say what's going on, she is talking with a smile. He is now talking to the other Loki, who is either talking through her or is her. It's almost unclear, but I just hang on. So we go to Mobius and the others. One guy's coming asking if they're FEMA, saying, if you guys got helicopters or anything, you need to use it now. Mobius has to say, no, they're not, but, they're trying to look through bags, try to find the charges and everything else that the Variant Loki has taken. And one of the guards is just pushing people aside, being a complete asshole. And Mobius like, "Hey, chill out, dude." He's like, they're gonna die anyway. Who cares? And that is the thing that annoys me about these people. Loki has one of the biggest points of all, saying, "Hey, you guys are so arrogant because you get all this power. You don't realize what's gonna happen if someone can actually take you down and you look down on them," which they have been doing since the first minute of the first episode. Uh, we also get a moment of Mobius's humanity when they go to Pompeii, and Loki is kind of like, well, they're gonna die anyway. So Mobius is like, yeah, but it's in bad taste, and Loki's like, well, we're all gonna die, so who cares? And we get to see more of Mobius being more of a human being now, or showing human. I have no clue what these beings are. I digress. They find the missing agent C-20. She's mumbling. Go back to Loki having banter. They're having back and forth banter, and uh, the Loki variant is saying that Loki's currently working for them. And Loki's pressing, saying, I'm just infiltrating them. She shifts to a different body without having to touch this person. Shifts to a different body. B-15's on the ground, and he's saying he wants to meet her because he wants to meet her. He wants to meet with. I kind of spoiled this for you, but he wants to meet with the Loki variant because he wants to rule over the timekeepers. And Loki variant one hates being called Loki because he calls them Loki. Says just call me Randall, which is the person they took over with a very LED moving name tag. I hope to see those in stores soon. Anyway, apparently C-20 gave away on how to find the timekeepers, and she's frantic. Uh, but as Loki has been moving through, we see several of these reset charges being armed by the hooded figure, and he even Loki saying, "Hey, I gave you time back at the medieval place," and it seems like this Loki, the Loki variant that's talking to our Loki, is just not having any of it. And suddenly Randall is gone, and we get this big muscular, looks like big Canadian white guy just start beating up on Loki. He's throwing him around the place, of course being controlled by Lady Loki. And Loki jokes, "I would never treat myself this way." There's fighting with the vacuum, and I was kind of miffed on why Loki would be getting tossed around like this, but it doesn't really look like he's trying to fight. Loki is Asgardian. If you know anything about Asgardians, they're stronger than normal humans. Period. Now, it could be the magic was boosting this big guy up, or that Loki just really wasn't trying to fight. Gotta remember in that scene in Avengers when Loki's scepter hits Cap's shield, Cap looks kind of surprised. Yeah, Loki is lithe and thin, but he's Asgardian. He's still strong. Even in the comics, thin Loki is still strong. So, while we've been talking, the moment that the Loki variant saw them on camera, set a charge for 20 minutes. We have 1 minute left on these charges. you know, Loki, stands and approaches the guy who looks like he's also fiddling with the charge because Loki says, "Okay, so that's your plan. You're gonna blow us all up." And Loki variant's like, "No, that's not the plan at all." And Loki tells our Loki, "You need to brace yourself." The guy faints, and the hooded figure appears, pulling it back. I've kind of spoiled it earlier. It is a woman, but it is a blonde woman. This is Lady Loki, who was spoiled in the credits from the last episode. If you all even watch credits, I always say you should watch the credits, read the credits. Anyway, they appear, all the charges go off. But instead of going off orange, they all become purple. And these purple charges are then ejected through tiny time doors, just one by one by one by one. Eventually, somewhere through this, Mobius finds B-15, and B-15 doesn't know what's going on. B-15 just knows that Loki is gone. They're trying to find him, and over in the TVA, the timeline, the sacred timeline, is splintering off at all different eras. They are having a large scale, massive event. They can't even call in enough people. The judge lady we see earlier, she grabs her weapon. People are going through different time doors, and Lady Loki makes a time door herself, waves bye bye to Loki, and as Loki's contemplating going through the door, we see Mobius, B, whatever her name is, and the other time agent that was an asshole to people. Mobius is like, Loki, don't do it. Don't do it, Loki. Loki, don't do it. Loki looks, he kind of looks back and forth. He has no smile on his face. He has no evil look on his face. He runs through. And this is where our episode ends. So, how can I tell you my feelings in less than 5 minutes? Well, first and foremost, it's really hard to rate these things on a scale of 1 to 5 because it's actually really good. A lot of unsuspecting things happen here, especially when I saw leaks of Lady Loki, and Lady Loki did not look like this Lady Loki, which I find interesting. And yeah, this gives a 5 out of 5. Especially it's giving me WandaVision vibes with, wow, you went in this direction. What's coming up? So the whole changing your form thing. There are two different characters that there are two different Asgard females that deal with sorcery, especially in Thor comic books. It doesn't matter if it's the main timeline or not. It is the one character that has been missing from these Thor movies, the Enchantress. There are two enchantresses. There's Amora, who is the love. She loves Thor. She is the real mistress of the executioner that we saw in Ragnarok, instead of him working with Hela, which doesn't even get me started on how they changed Hela. Hela is supposed to be Loki's daughter, along with Fenrir being. There is actual Norse mythology that they use in the Marvel comics that I don't understand why they weren't used in the MCU, but getting over that. There's a second enchantress whose name, is I actually want to say this name correctly, is Sylvie Lushton. Sylvie Lushton one day woke up with abilities when Asgard appeared in Oklahoma. That was after the Ragnarok event where Thor, who is now the new ruler, he has the Odin Force, brings back Asgard. Ragnarok is an event that happens over and over and over again. Only reason why Thor fights to stop it is because he's tired of people dying over and over again. It is a cycle that will always happen. So this young lady wakes up and she has abilities. She takes the name Enchantress because blonde hair, green outfit. Turns out that she was given powers by Loki for no, don't know the reason or the scheme or the plot behind it yet. But it has been confirmed not only by a company that ran a scan on her, but by Loki herself, because this is when Loki was Lady Loki, that Loki thought it would be kind of funny to create a being that thought they were an Asgardian, to make a human that thought they were of the gods and had these abilities and had these powers. And constantly, unfortunately, this young lady, she wants to do good, but people always force her into being in these situations where she's a villain, which is, it's fine. There's actually two enchantresses exist at the same time, because the other enchantress is wholly evil, like fully evil. This enchantress is trying to find their way, given powers by Loki, the actual definition of mischief, someone who's trying to do good but isn't able to get it right. I fully 100% believe that this Lady Loki we see in the show is actually this character. I fully believe that in some type of time variant, possibly, possibly actually at the end of Ragnarok, that a Loki said, someone needs to continue on. We need more Asgardians. Uses his abilities because Loki explains duplication magic, a version of himself that is actually a female, because even in the first episode they confirmed that Loki is gender fluid, which doesn't add or take anything away from the character. Just part of who they are. Uh, Makes this version that looks overtly feminine, overtly female, and this is where that character takes off. This is where that time variant comes from, and the time variant was probably is Sylvie is strong enough to take on Wiccan in the comics, who is a candidate for Sorcerer Supreme. She's very very strong. She also fought Doctor Strange and Clea, two of the strongest magical beings in the comics at the same time, holding them off. So it's easy to ascertain that in the MCU, Loki made Sylvie, aka Lady Loki, and you know created her of himself, this being, and they splinter off. Now, probably Sylvie encountered, not being born, probably a whole 5 minutes, encountered the TVA. Since she is of Loki's abilities, just like in the comics, she gives off an aura of Loki. So you can't tell if either he made her or just gave her powers. He probably made her. This is probably what this character is, saying, I'm not Loki, which is probably why she hates being called Loki. It makes a lot of sense. A lot of things aren't said and done for no reason in in MCU period, not just the shows. So for her to have that snap reaction of I don't like the name Loki, but then tries to make it funny by saying call me Randall, this is their own person. This isn't Lady Loki, who I'm a huge fan of that character. I love Lady Loki. I was probably one of the few people who was actually excited when Loki became Lady Loki and didn't lose his shit. Fanboys lose their shit over everything. But that's not the only thing I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is because the timeline has had multiple branches forward and backwards to occur, there's no way the TVA can take all this on themselves. I don't care how much infinite void they have and how many people they have. There's no way they can stop all this. Instead of Wanda giving us mutants, it is Enchantress slash Lady Loki that has probably inadvertently given us mutants. Probably sometime in the earliest part of the genealogy of Homo sapien became I have no idea what they call the mutants, Homo something. There's the branch, then that variant creates another timeline, and I'm gonna who's to say that the branches don't cross back over into the main branch, and mutants have been here the whole time, but just like with the reset bombs where everything is deleted and nobody knows, it's probably very easy for mutants to be introduced now. A lot of people saying they've always been here, but a select few characters, just like it happens in the comics, especially after House of M, and there's another event and several other events where there are characters that remember what happened in that universe. There'll probably be a select few people that are like, mutants weren't a thing 20 years ago. Who are you? I hung out with Cap. I'm this super old dude named Logan. And things are intertwined, and this is how we all get our X-Men. Excellent episode. I don't know how Kevin Feige could have lied to his investors and say, no, you don't have to watch these shows. This is probably the most impactful thing that has happened in the MCU since WandaVision. No offense. No offense. Captain America, Anthony Mackie, Captain America. That is a huge thing that happened too. A black man becoming Captain America and America itself having to deal with that. And this is gonna be going on further with Avengers. Adventures. This is gonna be a thing. This has ramifications for the universe as a whole, and I really hope they do a Secret Wars. Either I don't care if they do a flashback before the Timekeepers. I don't care if they do a thing right now. You have an opportunity to do what you have in your comics and have different universes and do different things. This is how you do What If. This is how you do things. I'm really tired of Marvel making their comics like their shows. Stop it. Do your own thing. This way you won't run out of stuff for your shows. But I digress, guys. I had a good time. Please let me know what you think of the episode down in the comment section below. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified of more videos like this. I'm going to keep doing it. This is episode 2. We got 4 more. Episode was 52 minutes long. The credits aren't really all that long for these, so it's really, really good. Remember to share the video, show more people what we're doing here. Even if you play me like a podcast, have me in the background, listen to me talk. A lot easier than having to sit down and watch something for an hour, right? Anyway, I thank you for your time. Please be good, be blessed, wear a mask, wash your hands. Black Lives Matter. Be good to yourself and be good to others. Please do not be a jerk. And I will definitely see you next time. Excelsior.